Day 795 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzie here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So, starting off, we'll take a look at the Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 467,000 military personnel losses, representing an additional 1,320 in the past day. A staggering number, no doubt, but not unexpected given a flare-up in activities recently. Then to the hardware losses: 6 tanks, 16 APVs, and 37 artillery. Not to mention 44 unarmored logistical vehicles. Then headed across to the map and starting out in the faraway lands of Russia's Orenburg region. Never a dull moment around here. And this time because the Ukrainian Directorate of Intelligence reported successful sabotage operations as unknown individuals reduced a diesel locomotive to ashes. But it wasn't even an isolated incident, as just 2 days prior, a similar incident occurred at the Vladikavkaz region, which is a Russian location that borders near to Georgia, where another diesel locomotive was consumed by flames under the cover of darkness. As such, these types of bold strikes aim to cripple Russia's logistical capabilities, as the destruction of vital locomotives hinders their ability to transport supplies and personnel. Then, as for some added extra updates from the weekend, as satellite images of the Krasnodar airfield that was hit have now appeared. And as a result of the recent Ukrainian drone strike, one Russian Su-35 fighter jet was potentially destroyed. And this event came at the same time when an ammunition warehouse was struck right here, and an oil depot and refinery not too far away from here either. And on that note, Russian Telegram channels are dissatisfied with the official coverage of successful attacks on Russian energy infrastructure, with them asking what are these quote-unquote fragments that are taking out refineries one by one, and what they're actually referring to there are common Russian state media explanations. Because Russian state media cannot concede a loss. So instead they constantly remark how air defense shot down the drone successfully, but fragments hit and destroyed their intended targets anyway. And as it would appear, it's a hard pill to swallow for many Russian telegrammers now. In fact, it reminds me of the time when the Russian military claimed they shot down their own A-50 radar plane. You see, they would rather say they shot down their own planes instead of concede any sort of defeat. I mean, getting your plane shot down is one thing, but preferring to state you shot them down yourself and admit complete incompetence is another. Although, having said that, Russia still does shoot down some of their own aircraft from time to time. Then, moving along, I'll briefly mention the case of the KAMAZ plant, which is a supplier of automotive equipment for the Russian military, was engulfed in flames over the weekend up in Tatarstan, some 1,200 kilometers away. And for this event, the cause of the blaze remained unknown as the inferno raged through the facility for some hours. With the extent of the damage and potential impact on KAMAZ operations are yet to be determined. Although at this point it would be impossible now to rule out Ukraine's one-way UAVs that can now reach such a distance. Then headed across to the Ukrainian map today as fierce battles continue to rage across the eastern front lines. Although noting that Ukraine still fully controls Chasiv Yar, with various plotted positions of Russian forces still on its eastern outskirts. Then taking a look at the most active region right now, as Russia made some northwestern moves beyond the town of Osheretino. With the question being, where are they going or looking to go? Well, the Ukrainian Commander-in-Chief, Syrsky, has described the Pokrovsk and Kurakov sectors as the most challenging, which are effectively these sectors right here. And although being some 20 or 30 kilometers away, as the crow flies, that might be part of the Russian forces' aim, particularly as they look to reach the highway. And despite Ukrainian withdrawals from Brodichi and Semenivka, locations of which are both west of Avdiivka, the Institute for the Study of War assesses that Russia is unlikely to achieve significant near-term gains. Ukraine is also in the stages of their plans to rotate units to restore combat capability and defend against combat fatigue, which, as it has been stated, may constrain Russia's ability to make rapid tactical advances without additional troops. Though the Ukrainian retreats have not yet facilitated swift Russian progress, and the arrival of Ukrainian reinforcements will force Russia to either accept limited progress or commit more reserves. Commander Sersky has also stated that while Russia has made marginal advances, it has not yet gained an operational advantage, and that it's unlikely to lead to a significant operational breakthrough in the near future. But Russian forces do face a choice in this region: either continue pushing west towards Pokrovsk, which is in fact their reported operational objective, or drive northward to support offensive operations around Chasiv Yar. Then looking around, because somewhere in the east we saw a destroyed Russian BTR-82A somewhere in the Luhansk region. Then also we saw Russian armoured vehicles of an unknown type seemingly coming up against anti-tank mines. So another area of denial circumstance there. Then, in a similar vein, the 92nd Assault Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine showed footage of former large-scale losses, which are about 40 pieces of equipment suffered by the Russian army on a small section of the front with an area of about 3.5 square kilometers. Specifically now, this footage was taken around the Andrivka and Kurdimivka areas, which you may remember. So, an impressive junkyard. Then moving across to the Kherson region, as Ukrainian forces have seized control over the Nestraya island, which is part of the river delta. But also, bear in mind, just northeast of here, the Ukrainian army has actually forced some 200 square kilometers of land just beyond into the grey zone. But that doesn't include the liberated land, like that of the northern Oleshki region, that is just opposite to the Antonivsky Bridge, which hasn't been a functional bridge for quite some time now. And so for the Nestraya Island, this strategic position strengthens Ukraine's hold on the area, from where they will inevitably launch further operations. The location also helps to bolster their defense against potential Russian incursions. Then to some hardware news updates, as there is plenty of footage now on show displaying that the cavalry has been called in, for where we see multiple instances of Humvees, Bradleys, M88 recovery vehicles, but also the M109 Paladins, those SPGs, including their field artillery ammunition supply vehicles, all en route to Ukraine, mostly travelling via Poland. Oh, and on that topic, a Ukrainian brigade recently also took delivery of 40 of their domestically produced Cossack 5 armoured vehicles. And so, what is all this Ukrainian military aid, this hardware, up against? Well, in another Russian hardware segment update, many of the Russian forces appear to be doubling down on their Chinese Desert Cross golf buggies, with some unique and eccentric cope cage additions, as they utilize all manner of scraps combined with ripping off locals' fences to make these vehicles really come to life. Now, I don't know if this is the completed product for such a project, but unlike say the Ukrainian Cossack 5s, for instance, as an example, that have shrapnel and bullet protection, these Russian upgraded editions, by contrast, still appear to have gaping wide open door frames, just like the OG golf buggy product, which literally still leaves them open to all manner of concerns. And I certainly still maintain that these golf buggies are not fit for purpose vehicles in the battlefield. It's an incontrovertible fact. Then in some more news, NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg made an unannounced visit to Kyiv, where he met with Zelensky, during which they discussed the initiative to pledge additional support for Ukraine defense against Russian aggression, where the NATO chief also emphasized the need for allies to go beyond their comfort zones, referring to national weapons stockpiles, stating that stockpiles can be restored while Ukrainian lives lost cannot. Then in some other news, Turkey is in negotiations with ExxonMobil, a US-based company, to secure a long-term liquefied natural gas, or LNG, deal worth billions of dollars. With the Turkish energy minister recently stating that the potential agreement could provide up to 2.5 million tons of LNG annually for a decade. So what's happening here? Well, Turkey aims to diversify its energy sources and reduce its reliance on Russian natural gas, which currently accounts for about 40% of its consumption. The terms of the deal are still under discussion, but Turkey is determined to build a new supply portfolio as contracts with Russia are set to expire. And this move also comes as Turkey's Dortiol oil terminal halted business with Russia due to mounting pressure from US sanctions, which also amounted to Turkish exports to Russia dropping by a whopping 34% in the first quarter of 2024. Then moving along, as for a bit of a shorter video today with a really quick funny, although it is a two-parter. And it's more of an interest of mine, to be honest, so not that funny. But first of all, it was recently seen that North Korea paraded a fleet of rocket launchers that were towed by none other than tractors. And it's not a good look, although I think we've seen this kind of farcical parade from North Korea before. Which leads me on to the Russian May 9th Victory Day Parade preparations. As seen here in Moscow, getting ready for next Friday. Now, many regional celebrations have been cancelled, but the Moscow parade has still been greenlit, albeit under some intense security measures. And I don't know if Russia will condescend to the level of tractors, but one thing's for sure, the event will be a lot smaller than previous years. Although it is possible, Russia will try and save face by putting on a small token force of aviation, which they cancelled at the last minute last year. And I might expect them to also pull out some of their prototype vehicles and the like. So in this photo, you can see what I believe to be a BTR armoured personnel carrier on the top left, one of those 8x8s, although it does look like one of the low production newer variants. And by newer, I mean decades old. Then on the top right, looks like a Kamaz 4x4 vehicle. And then on the bottom is a Russian military Buhanka Scooby-Doo van. And I say Russian military Scooby-Doo van because it appears to have the black military license plates, as opposed to the white ones that are used by civilians instead. But perhaps the biggest question that remains to be answered is if Ukraine will seek to disrupt the Parade Day celebrations, being that they have this newfound long-range capability that would allow them to make an entrance at such an event many hundreds of miles away. But I am genuinely left wondering if Russia will do a repeat session from last year of just the one singular tank for this year's event. But for the record, I won't count it as passable if they whip out their 8 prototype T-14 Armata tanks, which they recently cancelled production of due to high costs. But I am still fully expecting them to be retrofitted into parade tanks instead. That is, if they run at all. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks again for watching. Please continue to like and comment. I really do appreciate all of that and all of the support and more. And I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers.